CIUT 89.5, the sound of your city.
Hello and welcome to Tracks from Abroad on CIUT 89.5 FM. My name is Jesse McDougall, and today we are visiting another country on the show as we do every single week. We're talking about Lithuania today, and we're joined by a guest. We have Darius Skusevičius, the ambassador of Lithuania to Canada. I can't think of a better person to tell us about Lithuania today. Darius, how's it going?
Good, great. Thank you, Jesse, for having me on your show.
I appreciate it very much. So right now you're in Ottawa, is that correct?
Yes. Look, I arrived to Canada. I was lucky enough to arrive in pre-COVID times.
Okay.
You can also call it BC, before COVID. So it was exactly 3 years and a week ago. I came and I still managed, till in those several months, I managed to get my Minister of Foreign Affairs visiting Canada. We had great political consultations of free Baltics with Canadian counterparts here in Ottawa, and then everything was closed. But look, even closures, where it was a great period of time in terms of work, because otherwise, most probably you know that Canada is a big country. So, traveling around would be quite difficult. And, April 2020, I started connecting to all communities across Canada on VTC, which became, normal. And since then, we have, once a month, we're meeting with all Lithuanian communities across Canada and coordinating our activities. So, it was challenging, but on the other hand, it created new opportunities. And we always had technologies with us. We could do those virtual meetings before COVID, but we were never using that. And finally, with the COVID, we started using that technology, and it made the world even a smaller place with much more, participants from around the world participating in, one day an event in Canada, another day event in Japan, Australia, or wherever, because it's much easier now.
Yeah, a lot of our courses at the University of Toronto, of course, went virtual, and there was a lot of friction, a little difficulty that, figuring out how the websites worked and how all of this worked. For you guys, ambassadors, you're really dealing with some important conversations. Was there any challenge there? Was anybody muted? You're trying to get the ambassador of Japan to unmute himself or anything like that?
Look, of course, there are those, technical challenges when you have to ask people to mute, to teach them how to unmute different kind of systems, etc. But biggest challenge was and still is with virtual events actually two challenges. First is that it will never replace real conversations, and in our work is important not only what is said on the stage, but also what you talk with your colleagues around the stage. All those informal conversations, sharing of experiences, exchanging, what is happening in respective countries, etc. So that's the challenge number one, that there was no social interaction, or most of the events didn't create space for real conversations. It was, most of the times it was a one-way street with several questions at the end, and only few events I attended had, real networking commutation sessions where you could meet new people, exchange contacts, etc. So this is challenge number one. Challenge number two is again, we usually, it's open source, it's open platforms, it's not encrypted. You can have participants from wherever, and this is not the channel where you can share sensitive information.
Right.
So when you have in-person events, there are some formats which are, off the record. Some of the formats, for example, when we meet colleagues in Department of Defense or Armed Forces or Global Affairs Canada, you go to even special rooms to
Right.
talk, information which has on it restricted or secret or
Yeah.
whatever, and you cannot do that on VTC. So this was challenge number two. But other than that, I would say it worked okay.
Good. I guess it's not the same to go into a breakout room on Zoom and to share sensitive information. That may be not the best idea. Darius, I first got the idea to do a show on Lithuania through another radio show on CFMU, which is McMaster University's radio stations, called Echoes of the Amber Coast. And it's all about Lithuania. There's Lithuanian hosts and they play Lithuanian music. So I'd like to ask you, what does the Lithuanian community in Canada look like? What is the size of it, and who are some of the figures who are important to that community?
Yeah, so let's start. This year, Lithuanian community in Canada is celebrating 70 years of the official establishment of organization as such. There were Lithuanians who came even earlier, but then they, just started to create their structures, and it was not as organized as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And we have currently, according to census of 2021 data, there are 50,000+ people in Canada who claim to be at least partially related to Lithuania. One of the parents, one of the grandparents coming from Lithuania, have relatives in Lithuania, or speak language, or have Lithuanian passports. So, and there are, they're coming from different waves of immigration. Some first Lithuanians came, I think, in the end of 19th century to Canada. But then, biggest waves were between First and Second World Wars, then massive wave of immigration to Canada after Second World War. Next wave was in the 90s, when we restored independence, people being free to travel and choose where to live. We're searching for a better life. And now the recent immigration, students, young families, youth who just are willing to study or to explore or to try themselves in different environment. So it's very diverse. And we have biggest concentration of the communities, of course, in and around Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
There are 30,000+ Lithuanians in this province. Second biggest community is in Montreal, but we have Lithuanians from coast to coast. Our community in BC is very active, very dynamic. They have community, they have Lithuanian school, they have hikers club there. Then if we go to Alberta, we have both communities in Edmonton and Calgary. If we go, I even found this year some Lithuanians in Saskatchewan. When visiting Saskatoon and Regina, we had great conversations with Lithuanians who live there. Lithuanian community in Winnipeg, I met them also. Yes, Ontario, we have communities almost everywhere, like London, Delhi, Hamilton, Niagara, Toronto, Mississauga, Ottawa, and many other locations, and of course Montreal. Some Lithuanians live even in Yukon and Northern Territories. We have Lithuanians, only a few of them, but there are still, so it's really diverse, and just several last sentences. When when most of them came, or their parents came to Canada, Lithuania was occupied. So main tasks or main goals of their, organizational structures was to first preserve culture and traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you will have, still traditional Lithuanian dishes being prepared at every parish after Sunday Mass, traditional dances, Lithuanian choirs, etc., etc., etc. So they kept all these things alive through decades. And another task was to fight for Lithuania's freedom till 90s. And now we are working on some documentary about the community. So it's very interesting to see all those videos or all those documents, which resolutions they were sending to Canadian officials, asking not to recognize our incorporation into Soviet Union, etc., etc. So yeah, and most of those organizations are still active till today. Dance groups in Toronto and Montreal, Saturday schools across the country, Lithuanian parishes, 2 parishes in Montreal, 2 parishes around Toronto, campsites for youth camps, scouts, and other organizations. So yeah, it's really interesting.
I spoke to an artist who's from Toronto, but is Italian, and she said something similar to what you just said, which is that when immigrants come from Europe, in this case from Italy, they came to Toronto and they established these cultural bubbles that took, let's say 100 years, they immigrated here, and then that culture from 100 years ago has been preserved, so that when this particular artist went back to Italy, she knew songs that were like from the great grandparents generation. And it was just sort of a juxtaposition of that older part of the traditional culture coming back to home.
Yeah, exactly the same here. And even Lithuanian officials, some colleagues coming from Lithuania to Canada, they are really very pleasantly surprised to see that people here know more Lithuanian traditional songs than people back home.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. Could you tell us about your path coming from Lithuania to Canada? Did you grow up in Lithuania? What was that like? And then I know you started as an IT specialist in meteorology. Now you're an ambassador. How did that all happen?
You should be careful with what you wish for, because all the dreams, if you put it in your head, it one way or another comes true. Most of them, if you are realistic enough. So yes, I was born in Lithuania, small town close to Vilnius. But in comparison to Canada, everything is small in Lithuania. From capital to go to the other part of Lithuania, to the west, to the coast, it's 3.5 hours. So, and that's all we have. Just to understand the difference of geography. But I grew up in Lithuania. I studied both my bachelor and master's. I finished it in Lithuania. I would say that game changer for me, or life changer for me, was youth NGO. And I started, to participate in different kind of organizations, starting from Students' Union at the very beginning of my study years at university. And this is how everything evolved, because when you start, no matter for what reasons you initially come to the organization, to meet new friends, to have a good time, but then you start to understand the philosophy of organizations, and if you are interested in that, you do advocacy, and you move up in your NGO career. So I ended up, my last positions were vice president of National Students Union, board member of umbrella organization of Lithuanian youth organizations, and that gave me, interestingly enough, if I would look now into the Lithuanian parliament, or leadership in different political parties across Lithuania, I've met most of them in my NGO life, because they were also active in different NGO organizations, and we had a great time, dealing with Vilnius youth challenges, or students problems, or national youth programs, etc., etc. So active people who are active in their life, they don't come from from the sky. They are growing up in the same environment where other active people are. So it's and this is the way to do things. Then I joined Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I was advisor to the minister. Then I worked in Brussels. Then I was deputy minister of Foreign Affairs. And from there, I came to Canada, and 3 years, hopefully successfully serving my country. Still, most probably a year and a half, maximum 2 years to go, and really looking forward to do maximum I can in that period of time.
Very good. As you're traveling around the world, it must be a thought, as you're traveling around the world, it must be important to you as a representative of your entire country to come across with a good image. And it's not just like you're traveling and you're an individual, but almost everything you do is tied to Lithuania. So what is that like to get on an airplane and just to be a representative for the federal government of Lithuania?
Yeah, it's a challenge, and very rightly said. You are never seen as a regular person, because even during your free time, people here in community, they see you as representative of Lithuania. Yes, it's your free time, but they see you as the representative. So it comes with some internal pressure to behave all the time, but you get used to that. You get used to that, and I think with the era of social media and everything being public, everything being filmed and put on different channels, you get used that you have to be careful. Of course, it especially is important when you talk, because every word, and you have to learn how to if you talk on behalf of yourself, you have to say that I personally think that it would be a great idea, but I should check with my government.
Yeah,
because every time when foreign ambassadors come to country, they present their credential letters to the highest ranking representative of the country they will serve at. So I presented my credentials to Governor General of Canada. At that time, it was Julie Payette, and in that letter, it says it is signed by President of Lithuania, co-signed by Minister of Foreign Affairs, and it says, please accept this person to serve the interest of Lithuanian people in Canada. Please trust him in everything he says, because when he speaks on my behalf or on behalf of Lithuanian government.
That's a lot of trust.
So this is serious. Yeah, this is serious, and you should every day remember that you are talking all the time, and people see you as a representative of your president and your government.
I see. And you've been doing this for 3 years, but in the course of that time, has there ever been a mess up or a funny moment? And what comes to mind as an example is Justin Trudeau wearing brown shoes to meet the Queen. And apparently that was a major faux pas to some people. But for you, have there ever been any instances where you thought, oh, that was a silly political gaffe?
I'm thinking. I understood the question. I'm thinking, trying to remember anything. Nothing funny for now. Let's
good.
proceed to
That's
another
good.
question. If I will have something, okay, I can add some additional layer. I'm a huge fan of running.
Sure.
So biggest thing I did in Canada was running in Churchill. Last November I did Polar Bear Marathon.
Wow.
So,
what does that involve? Does that involve like dipping in ice water, or what is it?
No, it's Churchill in November. It's quite a cold place to be, and it's the capital of polar bears. I went there with a relatively small group. I went there with 10 plus another runners, and I did a full marathon, 42 kilometers. You run 21 kilometer one way, then you turn around and run back. And people are usually saying that to be able to escape polar bear, you don't have to be the fastest. You have to be faster than at least one other participant. But they don't speak about the situation when you are running first and the polar bear is in front of you.
Do you sacrifice your position?
So
that's a tricky question.
So that was my situation, actually, running and seeing polar bear 400 meters in front of me.
Wow.
But look, we had cars. Each runner had a car where they could jump in case of polar bear shows up, and the ranger scared her off, and she went out. So yeah, but I saw on that run, I saw 4 polar bears.
Oh my God, just on the one run. Golly.
Yeah.
Wow. I ran my first marathon this year. I did the Toronto Waterfront Marathon, and my fear was Toronto drivers. They're unpredictable as heck, but polar bears, on the other hand, that's a whole nother kettle of fish, I would say. Wow.
I also did that marathon this year.
Did you? This year?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
All right.
Toronto,
Let's virtually shake hands.
Yeah.
Congrats. Yeah, it was a great experience for me. Well, to wrap up, Darius, I'd just like to give you the opportunity to tell us about why Lithuania is special. Maybe you can tell us about what your hometown looked like or anything like that. But for anyone who's listening, who's not been to Lithuania, who might consider going there, why is it a special place to be?
It's not the question to answer in several minutes, but let's try. Once Lithuania was from Baltic to Black Sea, Grand Duchy of Lithuania, and it was throughout the centuries country inviting all the ethnicities to come and co-create the country together. Vilnius, capital of Lithuania, next year, 2023, is celebrating 700 years anniversary. 700 years. It's most probably a bit difficult to imagine for
I would say so.
Being here, and having most of the buildings and all the things, much younger. But so 700 years. Our old town of Vilnius is UNESCO World Heritage, with more than 50 great churches in the city. 30 kilometers from Vilnius is our old capital, Trakai. It's ancient castle, looks like really from the picture you want to have. We have all these seasons. By the way, our spring and autumn is a bit longer than in Canada, because in Canada you have mostly summer and winter, both for 6 months. We have longer transition periods, but we have temperatures from -30 to +30, so it's very similar. We have access to the sea. We have Coronian Spit, which is also UNESCO World Heritage. Must visit place if you are in Lithuania. And of course, Lithuania, it's very, like, everything is very close to each other. All the cities from Vilnius to Trakai, 30 kilometers, to temporary capital, which was the capital for some time, Kaunas, it's 100 kilometers. To the seaside, it's 300 kilometers. Europe in general is a great place to be because of the distances. You can travel all 3 Baltic countries in a week, seeing much of it. And then Canada's nature somehow reminds me of Lithuania, because lots of lakes, lots of rivers, lots of green, be it forests, be it whatever. At the same time, very, very developed capital with great day life, nightlife, cuisine, and everything. So it's definitely the place to visit and to see it yourself.
And is there any Lithuanian artist, musician that you can recommend for us to play on the radio show?
It depends on what you are playing. I'm an old man. I consider myself an old man already. Sticking to those music of 90s and 2000. But I will definitely share with you some links after this recording, and you will be able to play it.
Sounds good. All right. Well, Darius Skusevičius, the ambassador of Lithuania to Canada, I'm so glad that you were not eaten by a polar bear, sir. Very much so. And thank you very much today for speaking with us on Tracks from Abroad.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.